Woulda, coulda, shoulda. Life is filled with what ifs, but when it comes to your financial plan, there should be no ambiguity. Coming up on today's show, we offer tips to help you find confidence and certainty on your retirement planning journey, all on today's episode of Elevate Your Wealth.
And now, Elevate Your Wealth with Mark Stimson and Casey Elkins.
Welcome into Elevate Your Wealth. Your hosts, Mark Stimson and Casey Elkins. Between them, 42 years experience combined in the retirement planning business, helping hundreds of clients get ready for their retirement. They're certified financial fiduciaries. I'm Morgan Patrick, consumer advocate. Remember, you can find Mark and Casey at Elevated Financial Management and a great resource website. Check it out, efmnw.com. That's all letters, efmnw.com. You'll see links to the TV show, and all of our radio shows are there for you in podcast form. All right, so how many times have you said, if I only knew now what I didn't know then? And too many times, I'm guessing. Well, let's cut into this. Let's talk about it. Let's dig into this. And the many retirees have said this, and they wish they would have done differently. So what are those things? So, Mark, let's start with you. Here's the first one. I wish I had started my transition plans earlier.
Well, I think it goes without saying, right, that obviously the sooner we start saving for retirement, the longer our money has the chance to grow, right? Compounding is one of the greatest things ever. Ben Franklin had such a great comment about that, but compounding really does matter. So the earlier that we start, the more money we're going to have come retirement, right? But saving isn't the only thing that seniors and pre-retirees are putting off when it comes to this type of planning. In fact, it's really interesting. Casey and I, over the last several years, I know I witness it on a regular basis. People are willing to spend more time planning a week to 10-day vacation than they are their retirement, which is going to last their lifetime. All their money's involved, all of their taxes, and they don't seem, I don't want to say they don't care. I think they do, but they want to just put it off. Humans are procrastinators. Casey and I realize this big time in this world. So that can backfire on us if we're not careful. So the interesting thing that we've seen, a lot of pre-retirees, they wait till the last few weeks. Sometimes they might be a month, 2 months out at the earliest when they begin this retirement planning journey. Then all of a sudden, it's like it hits them right between the eyes. It's like, I had no idea there was so much to this. And so it's the same way when we talk tax planning with clients. So many want to walk in, December 1st, and they want to get these sophisticated tax concepts going, and we don't have time to implement them. So the sooner that we all start planning for retirement, that could entail your health, it could entail taxes. We're going to talk about inflation. What about the choices you're going to have to make for all of your income sources? Are they going to be guaranteed? Are you going to take a survivorship benefit on your pension? Are you going to do a single life only? There's so much to this. All I can say is, everyone listening today, please don't wait till the last moment to do this, because if you do, you're probably going to make some mistakes that you wouldn't make if you were doing a little planning a little sooner.
Again, talking about what retirees say they wish they would have done differently as they were getting ready to head off into retirement. Some of it's well early, some of it's right before they do it. But again, these are some of the things. Again, transition plans, getting those in place earlier. Casey, this next one, I wish I had gotten help with high-level strategies a lot sooner.
Yeah, this one really ties in with what Mark was just talking about. And honestly, I mean, this is kind of a cliche saying at this point, but you really don't know what you don't know. And that's what this is when you're talking to somebody who's a professional in a particular industry, whether it be finance or any other industry, inevitably they should know a lot more about that industry and the different avenues and tools that can be used for that given situation than somebody who's not in it. And it's the same circumstance with financial planning. There's a lot of things that can be done that the general population is just unaware of. And we can blame that on various different things. It could be blamed on the education system for not really doing a good job with any sort of financial training. But there's also just industry-specific information that exists. And given the right circumstance, there's lots of tools that can be used that many people are just unfamiliar with, they'd never heard of. And it's rightfully so, because those things don't apply in every circumstance, and there's certain complexities and things to understand. And so this is really where it boils down to that we see this a lot. People have a hard time accepting that they have blind spots in their understanding of what needs to be done and keeping an open mind to a professional's opinion, especially when it comes to finance. We see that quite a bit, especially given how things are. I mean, it seems like you can go online and learn as much as you like about different things. And many folks try to do that with financial planning too. But unfortunately, that doesn't give all the details. And it also doesn't give a all-encompassing view of your individual situation from the perspective of a financial professional. And that really is key if you're going to open yourself up to all the options that are out there. So we always encourage folks to keep an open mind, to have that conversation, to find a fiduciary, right? That's really important to make sure that person has your best interests at heart, and then see what those tools are that maybe you're unfamiliar with.
Tell you, hindsight 2020, you've heard that phrase before, and retirees looking back and things that they wish they would have done differently. Start the transition plan earlier. High level strategy help a lot sooner. This next one, Mark, I wish I had been open to changing strategies, have an open mind, be ready to pivot.
Yeah, this is something that is very interesting from an emotional and a mental planning standpoint. Sometimes change is one of the hardest things that humans have to do, right? We don't like change for a lot of us. In fact, the biggest percentage of us don't like to change. And we're procrastinators, right? By nature, most are. So, but as we age and our assets are doing and hopefully acting differently based on what the market is doing, change is inevitable, right? And it should be planned out. Like I said, as we are younger, we might be taking a lot more risk, a lot more chances, right? Maybe we're going to buy nothing but stocks, and that's okay. We can keep our fees down, right? But again, as we get older and we start to transition, we want to cut what's known as a sequence of return risk. And we can do a lot of that with age-based planning. So the older the person is that comes into our office, the more conservative we become with their assets. We need to stay ahead of inflation, don't get me wrong, but we've got to be willing to pivot or change as we age, because if bad things happen in the market, the closer we are to retirement, it can be devastating to your money supply. It could evaporate 10 to 15, sometimes 20 years sooner if the bad years happen in the market early on in retirement. So you've got to be willing to make changes. And one of the things that we see all the time is some people are using the exact same approach that they were using when they started their retirement journey, right? And it doesn't work that way. At least it shouldn't. And so please work with someone that's been doing this a while and can help us come down the mountain, because there is so much more to retirement planning than just asset accumulation. It's like night and day. And it's something we live for, and we're pretty good at it for somebody that wants to face some of these challenges and learn some things.
I think it's an excellent point that retirement is not in a vacuum. Things are going to happen.
Yes.
They're going to influence what's going on inside your portfolio, therefore what's going on inside your plan. And you need to be open to having those types of conversations when the time comes. You can't set it and forget it, so to speak. So again, guys, we get into these topics. We also give our listeners an opportunity to meet with you. No cost, no obligation, no pressure. Those spots are about to open up. And again, this is an opportunity to kind of get to know Casey, get to know Mark, get to know the team, see where you are in your planning process. So stay tuned. We'll open up those spots here in just a second. So Casey, last one. Again, we're kind of going over the hindsight being 2020, woulda, coulda, shoulda. These are retirees, things they wish they would have done differently. Maybe start that transition plan earlier, get help with higher level strategies a lot sooner. And then again, be open to change. If something happens in our markets, in our economy, how are you going to handle that? Are you ready to pivot? Are you prepared? Make sure you have a plan. The last one, I wish I had kept my eye on the prize.
Yeah, this one is really tough, and we see the extremes of both sides of this. Just realistically, what it really boils down to is we live in a society that promotes consumption, right? We talk about credit card debt, all those kinds of things, and instant gratification. Well, saving for retirement and being successful in retirement is not an instant gratification thing, right? We're going to do that now. We're going to follow the process, and we'll experience that gratification later. We'll experience that success later. So balancing funding our life now and enjoying and having a good time, while at the same time taking care of our future self, is really, really important. And we find that so many people get stuck in this concept of spending now and funding their life now and forget about retirement until they're 4 or 5 years away. And then they want to massively try and change that in a short period of time. And that is really, really hard to do. So we want to try and strike a balance there, fund our lives today, but make sure that we fund our life for our future self as well.
All right, well, let's open up 10 calendar appointments. Again, Mark and Casey ready for you. So Casey, real quickly, what's going to happen for the next 10 callers?
Well, for those that are willing to pick up the phone and give us a shout, we are going to give you a written financial plan put together by our team of certified financial planners. So that plan is going to lay out what your income looks like. It's going to look for opportunities to increase your income, make sure that it adjusts for inflation over time, make sure that it lasts over your lifetime. It's also going to show your tax burden over the next 20 years, what that looks like. That is something that we have got to account for. We're also going to take into consideration the different investments that you have and the different choices there to make sure that we're using those funds as efficiently as possible. Don't hesitate. Pick up the phone. Give us a call.
Here's the phone number, 866-668-3625. That's 866-668-3625. If you've saved at least $250,000 towards your retirements, again, these strategies are going to work best for you. Call the number 866-668-3625. When we return, an economy crippled by high inflation, rising interest rates, folks are panicking about potential recession. Coming up next, we're going to unpack how you can manage your retirement savings in a short term to maximize your financial stability in the long term. That's coming up next. Welcome back into Elevate Your Wealth. Mark Stimson, Casey Elkins are your hosts. You can find them at Elevated Financial Management right here in Seattle. They're the power behind the program, 42 years combined experience in the retirement planning business. Again, helping hundreds of their clients get ready for their retirement. They are certified financial fiduciaries. I'm Morgan Patrick, consumer advocate. We hit the topics each and every week. Entertaining, energetic discussions about retirement. You're going to have questions about your situation. We give you an opportunity to get on the calendar with Mark and Casey, Elevated Financial Management. And these appointments are no cost, no obligation. There is no pressure. This is about your retirement. This is about helping you. So stay tuned. We'll open up those spots here in just a little bit. So how can we manage our savings and stretch our dollars to make sure that we don't run out of money in an economy that's been plagued with recessionary forecasts? I mean, we're all over it. We see it on the news every single day. Well, don't worry. Plan ahead and your finances will remain intact, recession or not. So it all boils down to making smart investments, smart decisions about those investments, and particularly when you're faced with a volatile market, and certainly the conditions are ripe for that. So Jake Jolly is a strategist, head investment analysis for BNY Mellon Investment Management, joined Squawk Box on CNBC recently to discuss the current landscape of the market. So let's listen in.
You know, the bottom line here is that to be a successful long-term investor, it's more about being in the market than it is about trying to get these very short-term sort of tactical decisions. We are certainly cautiously optimistic. That was kind of the nicest way that I could put it, because when we look across this market and we look at the rally from last October, you know, we're very skeptical that this is a sustainable new bull market rally that we're in. And the reason for that is that it's obviously a very narrow market rally. We see that financials are lagging through this period. We think that you need to be very cautious about this rally and definitely pick your spots.
All right, that's Jake Jolly. Again, he is BNY Mellon Investment. He's investment analysis. Jumping on Squawk Box earlier. Now, how do you feel about the assessment, guys, regarding the state of the economy and the take on sustainability about potential market rally touted across the network news coverage, of this economy?
Yeah, this is something that everyone is concerned about, including Casey and I. In fact, a few weeks ago, Casey and I had the privilege to be in New York City to actually go on to one of the largest trading floors in New York, which is Barclays. And we were able to talk to some of the top people at Barclays about what their viewpoint was on things. And I know I kind of came away encouraged a little bit. But I'm in Jake's camp when it comes to short term. Casey always is helping me all the time. You got to be in the market really to make any money over the long term. And the problem is investors today are driven by two emotions, right? We talk about all the time, greed and fear. And the problem is a lot of people are jumping off the train right now. They're jumping out the 10-story window and they don't have a parachute on. And they're worried about it, right? So they're going to make emotional decisions, which in the long run is probably going to hurt them. So you're right. We are concerned. Last year there was nowhere to run. Bonds were down. Equities were down, right? So it was a very unique time. And I'm in the camp with BlackRock, the largest money manager in the world. I don't think today's planners can plan by the old playbook. I think it's got to be thrown out, rewritten, because it's very unique today, but it doesn't change the fact that we still need to be in the market. We need to stay ahead of inflation, which we're going to talk about here in a few moments. But I think Casey might have something he'd like to add on this as well.
Yeah, I'll just say that, Jake Jolly's viewpoint on this, I think, makes a lot of sense, just in the sense that it's very balanced, right? I think when you watch the different money shows on TV, the different finance shows, it seems like either the sky is falling or there's this amazing portfolio where you get 12% every single year and it never fails. And it seems like both sides are so ridiculous to me. And Mark mentioned it, that it's fear and greed that drive people's investments, right? It's those two emotions. And that's totally understandable. I mean, not totally understandable. I guess more realistically, that's well known that is what drives people. And that's why a lot of those shows are discussed in the way that they are, because that's what drives things. And so it's great that there's a rally right now, but I've got news for folks. That may be a great thing. It may continue to rally. We may pull into another great bull market. It could also be a bear market rally and things could continue down, because that's happened in the past. So, we don't know. That's the point, right? And Jake made the comment that you've got to be in the market. It's time in the market that wins. So if you want to look at a 1-year time frame and expect to win, it may happen from time to time, but it's not consistent. If you want to win in the market, it's got to be over a longer period of time, which includes staying invested appropriately, even when things aren't going the right way. It doesn't mean that we just statically leave it. We do make adjustments, but it's still staying invested in the market. And that's really what's going to win. So this is where it comes down to having a plan, right? If we're just going back and forth, just emotions driving how we're investing, that's what creates a lot of loss. That's what freaks people out. They jump out of the market. They try to jump back in. That's what's a recipe for disaster. A recipe to win is to have a plan, to make tactical movements, and to adjust those as the investing world is changing around us. You want to add something to that, Mark?
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. I wanted to piggyback Casey a little bit. When we try and put together a plan for our clients, we're trying to take the emotion out of it. It needs to be based on logic, right, and sound reasoning. If emotion gets involved, a lot of the times it's not the right emotion. I think we all know that. So Casey, I believe, is right on the money. We got to put together a plan that will address these things so that no matter what the market does, you can still come out okay. Like you mentioned, we want to recession-proof your plan. That's what our goal is, to make sure that you come out on the winning side of it, and your retirement just doesn't end up turning out to be some kind of a really bad fairy tale.
Elevate Your Wealth. Mark Stimson, Casey Elkins, Elevated Financial Management, where you can find them right here in Seattle. We're commenting on Jake Jolly, his latest comments to CNBC Squawk Box. Again, you can find Jolly. He's head of investment analysis at BNY Mellon Investment Management. And again, he appeared recently talking about the economy. Let's go to this next one. Jolly gave his opinion regarding the economic projections for the near future to close out the interview. Again, he appeared on Squawk Box.
We do think that the probability of a recession is quite a bit higher than the probability of a soft landing. And I think to buy into this rally, you really have to believe that the soft landing is well above 50%, and we don't think it is. So we do think that in a recessionary environment, you're going to break below 4,000, potentially testing those October levels.
Okay, well, the obvious question, guys, do you think the probability of recession is there? I mean, it's the hot topic.
I'll say that I do tend to agree with Jake right now, where things are at. From what we see, I do feel that is the direction that we are going. Now, this is the case, and this is the caveat that I give with any type of advice when it comes to forward thinking. With the information that we have now, that's what things appear to be. Things change, though, right? I mean, it very well could turn out the opposite of that. But this is really what it boils down to. And by no means am I trying to belittle the potential of a recession or of those continued issues. I mean, we do see those things moving forward. And we've said this on the show. I've talked about this a lot. There's a lot of tops spinning right now. And once one of them tumbles, it really is going to hit all the other ones, right? We see that. But realistically, again, it comes down to having a plan, because if your plan is set up appropriately, you can deal with those recessionary times. You can deal with inflationary times. You can deal with tax changes, all those things, if you have an appropriate plan. But if you're thinking about this, if you're forward thinking right now, and you are concerned, you are worried, you don't know what this looks like, you don't know how this is going to impact your retirement, you're concerned about it, chances are, my guess would be that you have a portfolio and not a plan, because a portfolio creates those concerns. A plan helps to alleviate them. And that's really what all this boils down to. You want to add something, Mark?
No, I was just going to say that's exactly right. We just can't overemphasize the importance of having a plan. That's the key to this whole thing. And because nobody's going to be able to know for sure, right? People try and predict the market. How's that work out for everybody most of the time? Those that try and time the market usually end up being losers. We know that. We've been doing this for 40 years almost. I don't try and do it. There's no way. So again, a plan is going to help alleviate the anxiety, the concerns, and it's going to give you some, we call it hope, that it's going to be okay. That's the whole point of this. We want you to have a retirement that you worked hard for.
Well, I mean, you've got a plan. You've got it, written out there. You know what you're going to do, but you're also going to revisit it. And if you have to pivot, you pivot. But having that plan gives you the ease of mind when it comes to retirement, and the stress level goes so far down just to have a plan. We're going to give you the opportunity right now. So let's do this, Mark. We've got the 10 positions on the calendar. What is going to happen for the next 10 callers?
Yeah, if you've saved at least $250,000 or more, maybe you are getting ready to retire from Boeing. We have a very extensive Boeing clientele or warehouser, and you're concerned about what's happening in the world. You're concerned about taxes. We know they're going up. We talk about it all the time. We don't know what's going to happen as far as recession goes. What about your income? Are you going to have the income you need, and is it guaranteed? So we're going to put together a written plan that's done by our team of certified financial planners. We're going to look at long-term care. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about, I mentioned taxes. What's the best way to move money to your children or grandchildren? All of these things, along with the health decisions you'll have to make when it comes to Medicare. Do I have a supplement, or do I have a Med Advantage plan? So these are all decisions that can cause a lot of anxiety, and we want to help you with that. So please pick up the phone, give us a call, and let us have a conversation. Keep your checkbook at home. Let's just talk about your situation and see how we might be able to provide some help.
All right, there you heard it. Leave the checkbook at home. This is a get-to-know-you meeting. Again, no cost, no obligation, no pressure. If you've saved at least $250,000 towards your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you. Here's the number to call to secure one of the appointments: 866-668-3625. Again, the number 866-668-3625. When we come back, it's a concept that we have learned over and over and over and still bears repeating. If you fail to prepare, then you prepare to fail. We will talk about it when we come back. Elevate Your Wealth. Your host, Mark Stimson, Casey Elkins. Where can you find them? Elevated Financial Management right here in Seattle. And between the two of them, 42 years combined experience in the retirement planning business, helping hundreds of their clients get ready for retirement. They're certified financial fiduciaries. I'm Morgan Patrick, consumer advocate. Want to remind you, too, there's a wonderful resource website. Check it out, efmnw.com. That's all letters, efmnw.com. And again, the TV show Elevate Your Wealth, links to that. And all of our radio shows are found there in podcast form. Great information. Again, go kick the tires. It's efmnw.com. So let's get into this, guys. The key to protecting your retirement dollars, proper planning, infrastructure for you, obviously. And right now, we're going to dissect some of the strategies to help you protect what you've worked so hard at, your retirement savings. So, Mark, first up, start saving for retirement, but do this, well in the past. You need to be, thinking about it 30 years out, 20 years out. You really need to start early.
Yeah, and this is something that for some reason a lot of folks just don't address. Casey mentioned it in our first segment. People are waiting sometimes way too long to get this ball going, and it is amazing what compounding does. So I highly recommend to anybody that's working that has the ability to be part of a employer-sponsored plan, they're matching. Take advantage of that. That is free money. And if you've got 20 or 30 years for that to build up, you will not believe how much you're going to have in your retirement portfolio. So, but you got to start, right? And start as early as possible. And now, if they don't have a match in the plan, I'm not a big fan of 401ks. I think there's better ways to do it to create tax-free income. But early savings is going to allow you to maintain maybe a modest lifestyle and have a retirement life that you really kind of were hoping for, right? So you got to start early. That's the key. That's the first thing I can say. Just start early, get as much free money as you can. And I'm also a big fan of creating tax-free income versus tax-deferred.
Right. And starting early, that really gives you the flexibility.
Yeah.
Right? If you don't start early, then you got one choice, which is to do everything that you can at the end. But if you start early, then you've got flexibility to say, oh, I'm way ahead of the game. Sure. I can actually contribute less, right? Or I can live a bigger retirement, or I can retire early, or whatever that looks like. But without doing that early, you lose those options.
Yeah, it's almost like if you're a football fan, you can kind of picture this. So if you start early, you've got a bigger field, right? You can run more plays. Your receivers have better patterns. But if you're in the red zone, and you've got 20 yards until you score or until you retire, your choice of plays are limited, right? Mm-hmm. So the more you save, the earlier you save, as Casey said, it just gives you more opportunities, more flexibility. All right, so this next one, Casey's for you. Again, talking about strategies to help protect your retirement savings, the debt that's out there, especially that high interest debt, get rid of it.
Yeah, you've got to. The sooner the better, but especially as you're approaching retirement, as you get closer and closer, getting that debt off of your shoulders is so key, because when you move towards a fixed income, if a lot of that's going towards debt, that lessens how much discretionary income you have in retirement. So the more we can get that debt taken care of, the easier it is to plan, the easier it is to envision what that retirement looks like. So paying that debt off should be an absolute core priority, even to the extent that we might take a consideration as to how much we're actually saving to consider, do we in turn pay our debt off now, or what that looks like. So whatever the circumstance is, it could be a mortgage, a personal loan, credit cards, anything like that. You've got to take the time, pay the debt off now, try to be totally debt-free, or at least as debt-free as you can when you're moving into retirement.
So this next one, it's almost like you get in your little time machine and you go into the future, right? And you figure out how much you're going to need in retirement. So you kind of determine what your spending needs are going to be, Mark, before you actually get there.
Yeah, this is where having some genuine expectations, regarding your post-retirement spending needs and habits is going to help you to define the amount that you're really going to need. We are really want our clients to do a budget. We want them, I have them usually track their spending for 1 to 2 months, where they write down everything that they spend. If they get a sandwich, they buy a Starbucks. they buy whatever at the store, their groceries, their bills. It's all written down for a month because that really will give us a pretty good idea of what their spending needs are. If you just try and go by a rough number, we can't tell you how many people give us that number. And then when we get a true budget done, the number they gave us is far less than what the reality is. And you cannot do that when you're living on a fixed budget, right? So we need to have a good idea as to what you're really going to need. And then what if you got a vacation planned out? Or what about some other bucket list event that you want to do? Maybe you'd love to do a European river cruise, or go bungee jumping. Whatever it is, you're going to have a plan for that, right? So we need to know what those costs are, because there's going to be set costs and there's going to be discretionary costs. And you want to have the retirement that you planned, right? It isn't just paying your bills and that's it. You want to be able to travel. You want to be able to get involved in the hobbies that you love. Maybe you'd love to create memories with your grandkids now instead of waiting until you're gone. We believe in doing that versus waiting. Create memories. To be able to do that when we're alive, to me, makes a lot more sense than waiting till we passed away to do those type of things.
And again, I mean, we talk about it every single week. I mean, have a plan. Make sure that's in there. Yep. Talk about your different scenarios. What are your goals in retirement? And maybe early on in retirement, have those trips placed in there, but make sure it's in your plan. And we give you an opportunity to get on the calendar with Elevated Financial Management. You meet with Mark, Casey, the team, and talk about where you are. If you are sitting on a portfolio, that's not a retirement plan. I know there are a lot of you out there that have done well and you've accumulated well, but once you get to retirement, how's that going to work? How's it all going to fit together? Got to make sure you have your puzzle pieces, and when you step back from that puzzle, man, that's your retirement. If you don't know what you're doing when it comes to putting it all together, your puzzle's going to be a mess, and you don't want a mess as you head towards your retirement. Again, opportunity to get on their calendar here in just a little bit. We're talking about strategies, to protect your retirement savings. So start saving, very early if you can, as soon as possible. Make sure you're taking care of that high interest debt as you move closer to retirement, because that could really eat in to that retirement plan. And then determine what your spending needs are going to be before you get there. And then on that, we'll piggyback, so to speak, Casey. You need to start practicing your retirement budget, your retirement spending before you actually get there.
Yeah. So once you have those retirement spending needs sorted out, as Mark was talking about, right? And as Mark mentioned, one of the ways we do that is essential versus discretionary spending. Then it comes time to start practicing that spending, right? So this is something where maybe it sounds kind of unnecessary to folks who go, well, practice spending for retirement. That doesn't sound like something I need to do. Here's why we'll say that this is important. When it comes down to it, folks that are moving into retirement are going through a big psychological shift, right? They're stepping away from work. They're going from earning a paycheck to now paying themselves from their retirement accounts and actually spending that money. And if you've been a saver for 40 years, it's real hard to go from being a saver to a spender overnight. So this is where it becomes time to start to practice. So you can get used to it, see what that income looks like, get used to spending those dollars and living that life in retirement. Make sure that you're making those adjustments, right? That you're making the lifestyle changes so that you can achieve the goals that you have for retirement. That's really what this boils down to, is having a successful retirement. And it requires figuring out that budget and then getting used to spending those dollars, right? Watching those dollars go out the door. We're not talking about spending your accounts all the way down, but this is, again, a psychological shift. It's an adjustment. And so it's something that we want to ease into. And sometimes folks start doing that while they're working. Sometimes there's a plan set up to make those adjustments for the first 6 months or a year as they move into retirement and start to get used to it and really make sure that they're maximizing that retirement and living the life that they've been dreaming about, that they've wanted all these years.
Strategies, planning, making sure you're ready for retirement. How do you protect your retirement savings? Save early, save often, put it away, pay off the debt immediately. That high interest stuff, get rid of it. Determine what your spending needs are going to be in retirement, and then practice at it. And now, Mark, this next one, and a lot of people don't think about it, invest in the right type of insurance.
Yeah, and I love this discussion because this is how I started my career, was just on the insurance only side. So that's one of the things that we do. A lot of folks come in and they think, well, they're hitting retirement, so they don't need insurance anymore. Well, that couldn't be farther from the truth. So you need to figure out what you need to protect. Now, one of the big ones right now that is going to be a problem for all of us as we age is long-term care planning. How am I going to pay? Right now, a facility right near my office here is $12,500 a month for full-blown care. How are you going to pay for that? Right? It's not going to be covered by Medicare, and it's not going to be covered by your supplement either. So you need to talk about that. What about some sort of final expense plan? I love this topic because there's some great plans that you can do. You're not buying anything. You're just switching pockets. But how wonderful would it be to have money available to pay final expenses, maybe make a house payment or two? Bills don't stop just because we pass away. So you need to think about, how is that going to be taken care of so you're not a burden to your family? What about income for to pay a mortgage off? Insurance is going to be needed for that, or to protect our spouse and children. Could be disability. Maybe we are a doctor or have a job like that, where if we're disabled, we haven't passed away, how are we going to get money each month if we can't work? So disability can become a major issue for people. So the key here is assess your needs and then buy the right type of an insurance that's going to give you financial protection. But for me, the biggest takeaway from that, it gives us peace of mind knowing that our plan is not going to be blown to smithereens because we didn't have any insurance, the right type of insurance in place.
Just have a plan, talk it out.
Yep.
Now's the opportunity. We've got spots on the calendar with Elevated Financial Management. Casey, walk us through. We got 10 appointments. What's going to happen for these 10?
Well, if you've saved $250,000 or more, we encourage you to pick up the phone, because what we're going to do is give you a written financial plan put together by our team of certified financial planners. Now, what this really boils down to is taking a look at where things are at for you currently and building out a plan, potentially with some adjustments to make sure that that's going to be successful in retirement. And so with that, one of the main things that we're going to consider is your income, but we want to look at all those other factors that affect your income, right? So we're going to consider the tax liability that you have. What can be done to lessen that tax liability? What does it look like over a 20 or 30-year retirement? We're going to talk about the risks that you're taking in your investments, the insurance needs that you might have, what your spending goals are, and what that retirement's going to look like. So don't hesitate. Pick up the phone. Give us a call.
10 spots. Here's the number, 866-668-3625. That's 866-668-3625. If you've saved at least $250,000 towards your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you. 866-668-3625. We've got question and answer coming up next. Elevate your wealth. We're back. Mark Stimson, Casey Elkins, Elevated Financial Management, where you can find them. 42 years combined experience in the retirement planning business, helping hundreds of their clients get ready for their postseason. That's right. Golden years, their retirement. They are certified financial fiduciaries. I'm Morgan Patrick, consumer advocate. All right, here's how this next part of the show is going to go. I'm going to give scenarios, and the fellas are going to give us how they would handle it. Again, always starts with a plan. There's going to be an opportunity to get on the calendar with Elevated Financial Management when we finish up with these scenarios. And if you've got any questions about your retirement situation, maybe one of these scenarios will spark some questions. You can get answers by grabbing one of those appointments. So stay tuned. All right, first scenario to Casey. Here it is. What is going on with retirement accounts in the current market?
You know, that's a really difficult question to answer, I'll just say. What it really boils down to is things are ever changing. And a lot of this has to do with how your retirement account is invested, right? For the folks that have a plan, that have taken the time to look at the options and pick something that's going to be successful for them in the future, that's going to help create diversification and looking towards income, for them, they're not feeling the effects of the market quite as much. For those that are maybe just sitting on a portfolio, and don't really have a plan, they're experiencing the market to the full, right, up and down, and that's really what this boils down to. So, with things going on, kind of working the opposite way of the way that we want them to, meaning the market's going down. It has been for quite some time now. We've got a little bit of a rally, as we were talking about earlier. If you're fully exposed to that, it feels good when it rallies, but when things don't go the right way and you're moving towards retirement, that really creates a lot of concern. And so it really has to do with how you're invested. It has to do with what that plan looks like. Ultimately, when the market goes down, if you have market investments, most likely, most of them are going to go down. What the question becomes is, how much does it go down? When the market is down 20%, are you down 20%? Because if that's the case, you're pretty aggressive. You're taking quite a bit of risk, right? You probably don't have that much diversification. And so this is really where it comes into making sure that you're invested the right way, that you're building something confident for the future, that's tax efficient, that produces that income, that's going to give you the peace of mind that you need to actually spend those dollars in retirement. So, that's maybe not the most direct answer. I always try to give as direct answer as I can, but a lot of this just has to do with how you're invested. That's the big piece that I would really focus on, is how you're currently invested. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, and I would like to just maybe add something to that. This is where some things that a lot of people don't know about. There's what's known as buffered ETFs, buffered notes, structured notes that can be used in different situations to help protect on the downside. That's one of Casey and I's biggest concern. We want to help protect our clients on the downside, and a plan is going to help us to do that, right? And so if, like Casey mentioned, if the market's down 20%, but you're only down 8 or 10, right? That could be considered a win in a lot of situations. So again, it's about a plan, and that's why we need to know how much you're willing to risk. That's going to help us determine what type of strategies we want to use inside of your plan to limit the losses, because that's really what we want to do, is limit losses when the bad years happen. And we know on average, a bear market is going to raise his ugly head about every 5 to 6 years on average. So we need to have a plan.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's so important to have that because if you have that plan, it's almost like, if the market, the what if scenario is going to be discussed. What if the market goes up and down and all over the place? You're going to have a plan for it, and it's going to account for that. Next scenario, Mark, we'll throw this one at you. My 401k has lost over 20% this year. I can't afford to lose that kind of money. Every month I express my concerns to my current advisor, but he says not to worry. But I do worry, and I would love to know what you can do to help alleviate my fears. How do you handle that scenario?
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit. We had a workshop last week at a really nice car museum in Tacoma, Washington. And this is one of the things that we hear all the time, especially from Wall Street-based advisors. The big box stores, they tell you not to worry. Oh, it's just a paper loss. You're down 20%. Oh, don't worry about it. It'll come back. You haven't really lost if you don't sell. Well, I think that's a bunch of boo-boo myself. I think that you have to be worried about these downturns, because the closer we get to retirement, remember I talked in an earlier segment about sequence of return risk. It matters. And if you have the losses like what is happening right now, there's been some, the funny part is down one day, up the next, down big, then up a little bit, right? I've never seen this kind of volatility. But the point is, a plan's going to help us to deal with that, because what we don't want to have you do is take money out of what we call the red bucket, the bucket that's in the market when the market is down, because then you are locking in those losses. That's where some planning can make a huge difference on how your monthly income is going to be determined, because we don't want to have it based solely on a mark. Because if you do, maybe you had $1,000 coming in a month. Now, because the market is down, you got 400. That's going to be a big problem, right? And you got to have a plan for that. And so there's ways to do this, to figure it out, so that when the market isn't our friend, and it isn't all the time, but we're going to have a plan to be able to get you the income that you truly need without it turning into a disaster.
Yeah, that's something I'll just add to that, Mark, that, realistically, you hit the nail on the head, right? If we're willing to live a flexible retirement, meaning we can completely adjust our income based on what happens in the market, well, then that might be okay, right? But here's the deal. Most people don't want that, right? When you think about retirement, you didn't think about, well, I'll wait until the market's doing really well and then I'll go on that trip,
Yeah.
right? It was, no, I want to
Doesn't
go on the
happen.
trip, right? I want to spend the time with my family. I want to do those things. And so we got to have that confidence. And so, it's not something that we want to leave to chance. It's something that you've got to be confident in, and you've got to make sure that that plan is set up appropriately so that you can live the retirement that you've been wanting to live.
We are hitting scenarios. And again, these are retirement questions that come up. And we're seeing how they're going to handle them. Again, Elevated Financial Management, the power behind Elevate Your Wealth. You're tuned to it. There's going to be an opportunity to get on the calendar with Mark, Casey, the entire team at Elevated Financial Management. These appointments, for next week, they're no cost, they're no obligation, there's no pressure. If you've got at least $250,000 saved for your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you. So we'll open those appointments up here in just a little bit. All right, next scenario, Casey, to you. Certainly challenging. I'm trying to decide between two different financial advisors. Are there things that I can ask them, beyond the obvious, so I can pick the right one?
Yeah, this is we've heard kind of similar comments to this before, and this may or may not be obvious. A couple of these thoughts that I'll give you. So first off, I'd ask if they're a fiduciary. That may be obvious to some folks, but it's not obvious to others. We do want to ask if our advisor is a fiduciary. That's really important because that means that they're required to put our interests first. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's exactly what happens, but ultimately that's at least a step in the right direction. Then from there, it's really important to understand what type of planning is it that they do day in and day out. Most planners can talk about investments in the market and choices and things like that. That's pretty straightforward. But what type of planning does that individual do from day to day? What are they mostly focused on? And when we say what type of planning, I'm specifically referring to, are they a retirement planner? That's the big question. An investment advisor is not inherently a retirement planner. Somebody who's focused on retirement planning and therefore is concerned about what all of this looks like over the next 20 or 30 years, creating an income plan, talking about your tax liability and understanding what that looks like, talking about long-term care, talking about those investment choices so that they're set up the right way to last in a retirement. That is really key. That's where retirement planning is so different. So that would be on the top of the list for me, is to make sure that you're working with a retirement planner. In addition to that, you always want to understand what controls the initiatives of the company. So is that individual a solo act, that advisor, that person that you're talking to, are they a solo act, just one individual, or is there a team? And when it comes down to it, is that team under the directive of a independent company, or are they receiving direction from a corporate office that maybe kind of determines how things are invested and how things are structured? Or do they have the autonomy to pick what is the right thing for the individual client, whatever that tool or whatever that investment piece may be for that individual client? Those are the couple main things that I would really focus on to make sure that you're working with somebody who's really a great fit for you.
I tell you, question and answer, different scenarios. There may be something that we talk about on one of our shows that's similar to what you're going through. It's not exactly what you're going through. So make sure you've got a customized plan. There's going to be an opportunity to get on the calendar with Elevated Financial Management immediately following this last scenario. We'll throw this one at Mark. Will drawing from my IRA count towards the total income that I am allowed to make while receiving Social Security?
Well, I want to answer this because there's two answers to this, and some advisors don't get and understand this, especially if they're not well versed in Social Security. If we're talking about taxation of your Social Security, the answer is yes. It will be counted as part of the provisional income, and then 50% of your Social Security will be used to do that calculation to find out if you're over as a married couple, let's say $44,000 a year, then you're going to be in the 85% bracket as far as that's how much you have to declare. But when it comes to the earned income test, which a lot of people are talking about here, the answer is no. That IRA distribution will not count towards earned income. Okay. Now, so, a lot of us have built up money inside our IRAs. We're going to use it to generate income. That's the the whole point, right, of having an IRA. But when it comes to the earned income test, the Social Security Administration is only concerned about earned income. That's W-2 wages that we would get from working to determine if we're going to lose part of our Social Security because we went early when it comes to our Social Security planning.
Folks, just being on top of what's going on with your situation. A lot of you are out there flying blind. You don't have your hand on the pulse. You don't know what's going on. Best way to get things kind of in order is to start with that plan. And how do you do that? Well, you get in touch with a fiduciary firm. You get in touch with Elevated Financial Management, which you can do right now. So real quickly, Mark, let's hit it. We've got 10 positions on your calendar. What's going to happen for these callers?
We're going to put together a written plan based on our team of certified financial planners. So if you've saved $250,000 or more, please pick up the phone and call us. We're going to look at your income sources. We're going to take a deep look at your tax situation. We're also going to look at what you're going to do with Medicare and a different supplemental plan. So please pick up the phone, give us a call. You don't have to worry about giving us a check. We want to just have a conversation. So keep your checkbook at home. And if you've worked at Boeing, saved maybe $250,000 or more, give us a call and let's just have a conversation.
All right, we've got the 10 spots available right now. Here's the number, 866-668-3625. No cost, no obligation, no pressure, 866-668-3625. Another edition of Elevate Your Wealth is in the books. For Mark Stimson and Casey Elkins, I'm Morgan Patrick. We'll see you on the radio next week.
Investment advisory services offered through Foundations Investment Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The content provided is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns is not indicative of future results. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in states where it is properly registered or excluded or exempted from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. No legal or tax advice is provided. Always consult with a tax professional. All rights reserved.